What if everything you've been told about fitting in was actually designed to keep you small? While everyone's out here trying to sand down their edges to squeeze into boxes that were never built for them, there's a group of people who can't help but stand out, not because they're trying to be different, but because pretending to be the same feels like slow death. You've probably felt it, that gnawing sense that you're playing a game everyone else seems to understand, but the rules make absolutely no sense to you. Here's the controversial part. Nobody wants to say out loud, maybe you're not broken, difficult, or too much. Maybe you've been marked for something that requires you to be exactly this uncomfortable with the ordinary. See, there are 9 signs that show up in people who are wired for a different kind of life, and if you've got even 3 or 4 of them, you've probably spent years wondering why everything feels harder for you than it does for everyone else. But here's the plot twist. What if harder is actually the fast track, and comfortable is just another word for stuck? Let's cut through the noise for a second. You're tired of surface-level content that tells you to just be positive, while your life feels like it's testing you at a completely different level than what everyone else is dealing with. You've tried fitting in, you've tried following the blueprint, and something keeps pulling you back to this feeling that there's a manual everyone got except you. The truth? There is a manual, and you're not in it, because you're not supposed to be reading instructions meant for a completely different mission. This isn't about being special in some ego-stroking way. It's about recognizing patterns that explain why certain things destroy other people, but only make you stronger. Why you can't stomach fake relationships even when they'd make life easier. And why doors slam in your face right before you discover they were protecting you from disasters you couldn't see coming. In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through 9 specific signs that separate people who are just getting by from people who are built for something that requires a whole different operating system. And fair warning, once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. Which means you've got a choice to make about whether you're going to keep pretending or finally step into what's been waiting for you this whole time. You know that feeling when someone walks into a room and everything just feels off? Not in a scary way, but in that something here ain't adding up kind of way. That's your internal radar doing its job, and if you've got it dialed up to 11, you might be carrying something most folks don't even know exists. See, while everyone else is nodding along to the performance, you're the one sitting there feeling like you just walked into a movie where nobody told you the script was fake. It's not that you're judging people, it's that your system straight up rejects anything that smells like a knockoff version of the real deal. Think of it like having a metal detector that goes absolutely berserk when it gets near fool's gold, while everyone else is celebrating like they just struck it rich. You can't help it. Your soul's got standards that won't budge, and pretending otherwise feels like trying to breathe underwater. Now here's where it gets interesting. You're not just good at spotting the fake stuff. You've got this hunger, this almost annoying need to dig past the surface until you hit something solid. While most people are satisfied with the "because I said so" explanation, you're the one asking, "But why though?" Until someone either gives you the real answer or admits they don't have one. It's like being the kid who took apart the radio just to see what made the music happen, except now you're doing it with ideas, beliefs, and the stories people tell themselves to sleep at night. You'll spend hours, sometimes days, chasing down the source of something, whether that's reading the actual research paper instead of the headline or learning the history behind a tradition everyone just accepts without question. Books like Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari or Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman become your playground, because they don't insult your intelligence with oversimplified nonsense. But here's the tricky part that nobody warns you about. This gift of yours comes with a price tag attached. There was probably a moment, maybe more than one, where you had to walk away from something that looked perfect on the outside, because you could feel the hollow echo underneath. Could have been a job that paid well, but wanted you to check your values at the door, or a social circle that required you to wear a mask so tight it left marks on your soul. Everyone else thought you were crazy for leaving, but you knew staying would have been like slow-motion suffocation. And that's the thing about having this radar. It doesn't just detect the false notes in others, it won't let you play them yourself either. So here's your micro-action for today. Cancel one interaction that requires you to perform, instead of just be, and spend 20 minutes diving deep into something that actually matters to your growth. Whether that's studying market trends if you're into investing, or finally cracking open that philosophy book that's been collecting dust. Because people who can spot the difference between gold and glitter don't have time to waste on costume jewelry. And something tells me you're starting to realize there's a whole different game being played here. There's this weird thing that happens when you're wired differently. You'll be standing at a crossroads where everyone's piling onto the highway, and something in you just pulls toward that dusty side road nobody's talking about. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's more like your internal GPS has coordinates that don't match the default route everyone else downloaded. While your friends are lining up for the corporate ladder or the picture-perfect life template, you're over there wondering why nobody's asking if the ladder's even leaning against the right wall. Maybe you chose freelancing when everyone said, get a stable job, or you moved to a small town when the whole world was screaming, go to the big city. It's like being the only person who notices there's a trail through the woods that leads to a view nobody else will ever see because they're too busy stuck in traffic on the main road. And sure, that trail's got more rocks and fewer signs, but at least it's yours. Here's what nobody tells you about taking the scenic route. You're gonna feel like the odd one out more often than not. Family gatherings become this strange dance where people ask what you're doing with your life, and your answer doesn't fit into their bingo card of acceptable choices. You might have started a business in a niche nobody understood, or pursued a skill that made people tilt their heads like confused dogs. It's not that you're trying to be difficult, it's that following the herd feels like wearing shoes 3 sizes too small, technically possible, but absolutely miserable. Think about someone like Steve Jobs dropping out of college to take a calligraphy class, or J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter as a broke single mom when everyone said to get a real job. They weren't being contrarian, they were just tuned to a different frequency. Your rhythm doesn't match the metronome everyone else is following, and trying to force it creates this soul-deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. But let's get real for a second. There was probably a choice you made that had everyone shaking their heads, right? Maybe you turned down that promotion because it meant sacrificing your values, or you walked away from a relationship that looked perfect on paper, but felt wrong in your gut. At the time, people probably thought you'd lost your mind, but looking back now, you can see how that crazy decision opened doors you didn't even know existed. That's the thing about being the black sheep. You're not lost, you're just grazing in a different field, and eventually, people realize that field had better grass all along. So here's what you're gonna do. Grab a pen and write down one decision you made that was wildly unpopular at the time, but that your future self is absolutely going to thank you for. Could be something small like saying no to a draining friendship, or something massive like changing careers at 40. Write it down because you need to start seeing the pattern. Your instinct to zig when everyone zags isn't a bug, it's the whole point. And something tells me that unconventional choice you're considering right now, it might just be the smartest move you never saw coming. Let's talk about something most people don't want to admit. Some of us got handed a curriculum that feels like advanced placement in the school of hard knocks. While other folks are dealing with pop quizzes, you've been taking final exams since kindergarten. It's not fair, it's not fun, and it definitely wasn't what you ordered, but here's the kicker. That pressure? It's doing something to you that comfort never could. Think about how steel gets made. You take raw iron, heat it until it's glowing, hammer it, cool it down, then do it all over again until what you've got left can cut through just about anything. That's not a metaphor someone made up to make you feel better about suffering. That's literally how strength gets forged. Maybe you grew up watching Every Dollar, or you lost someone way too early, or you had to become the adult in your family before you even hit double digits. Those weren't random disasters. They were the fire that burned away everything in you that was just decorative, leaving only what's actually load-bearing. Now here's where it gets wild. The very things that almost broke you, are probably the exact skills that make you unstoppable now. Lost a business? You learned resilience and how to read a balance sheet the hard way? Betrayed by someone you trusted? Now you can spot loyalty from a mile away, and you don't waste time on halfway commitments. Health crisis? You know the value of a good day in a way that people scrolling through their phones at brunch simply cannot comprehend. It's like developing night vision because you spent so much time in the dark. Once you've got it, you can navigate places that would leave others completely blind. Take someone like Oprah, who went from poverty and abuse to building an empire, or Nelson Mandela, who turned 27 years in prison into the foundation for leading a nation. They didn't succeed despite the hardship. They succeeded because the hardship taught them things that a cushy life never reveals. Your pain isn't pointless. It's your PhD in real-world wisdom. But let's zoom in on something specific that might blow your mind. Those doors that slammed in your face, half of them were probably protecting you from walking into a disaster you couldn't see coming. Remember that job you didn't get, the one that kept you up at night feeling rejected and worthless. Then 6 months later, you found out the company tanked or the boss was a nightmare, and suddenly you're thanking the universe for that no. It's like a bouncer at a club who looks mean but is actually keeping you out of a place that's about to get raided. Rejection isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's redirection with your best interests at heart. That relationship that ended, that city you didn't move to, that opportunity that evaporated. What if those weren't failures, but course corrections, steering you away from a version of your life that would have slowly hollowed you out? So here's your assignment. Write down one skill you developed specifically because life put you through the ringer, and then list one door that closed on you that, looking back now, was actually protection in disguise. Map it out because once you see the pattern, you'll start trusting the process, even when you're standing in the fire, wondering why everything has to be so damn hard. And there's something about the way you give to others, even when you're running on empty, that suggests you already know what comes next. Here's something that separates the chosen from the comfortable. You've got this weird ability to show up for other people even when your own world is falling apart. It's not martyrdom and it's not stupidity. It's more like being a lighthouse that keeps spinning even during the storm. While you're dealing with your own fog, maybe a breakup that's tearing you apart, or financial stress that's got you up at 3 a.m. doing math that doesn't add up. Somehow, you're still the person your friend calls when they need clarity. You're bleeding, but you're still bandaging wounds, and that's not because you're ignoring your pain. It's because something in you understands that your purpose doesn't pause, just because life got hard. Think about it like this. A lighthouse doesn't get to take a night off when the weather's bad. That's actually when it matters most. You've probably had moments where you were giving advice that you desperately needed to hear yourself, or helping someone navigate a problem while you were drowning in a similar one. It feels contradictory until you realize that sometimes the act of lighting the way for someone else helps you see your own path a little clearer. Now let's talk about the other side of this coin. You're the type who gives without needing an audience or a round of applause. While social media is full of people filming their good deeds for likes, you're out here doing things nobody will ever know about. Maybe you paid for someone's groceries anonymously, or you spent hours mentoring someone without ever mentioning it, or you let someone take credit for your idea because you knew they needed the win more than you needed the recognition. It's like being a spring in the desert. You just keep flowing whether anyone's watching or not. People like Keanu Reeves, who quietly funds children's hospitals and cancer research without press releases, or Dolly Parton, who's been giving away books and funding education for years without making a spectacle. They get it. Generosity isn't a performance for you. It's more like breathing. You do it because not doing it would feel fundamentally wrong, like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The act of giving isn't depleting you. It's actually what keeps you connected to something bigger than your own problems. But here's the part where we need to get honest. Just because you can pour from an empty cup doesn't mean you should keep doing it until you're bone dry. There was probably a time when you helped someone through their chaos while you were in the middle of your own disaster, and yeah, it felt right in the moment. But afterwards, you were running on fumes for weeks. Maybe you talked a friend through their anxiety attack while your own mental health was hanging by a thread, or you showed up to help someone move on the same day you got devastating news. That's beautiful, and it's real, but it's also unsustainable if you never refill your own tank. Even fountains need a water source, and even lighthouses need maintenance. So here's what you're gonna do today. First, set one boundary, just one, that protects your energy without guilt. Could be saying no to that person who only calls when they need something, or blocking off an hour that's just yours. Then, and this is the important part, give 30 minutes of your complete, undivided attention to someone who matters. No phone, no distractions, just presence. Because the goal isn't to stop being generous, it's to be generous from a place of overflow instead of deficit. And speaking of knowing things before they happen, there's something about the way you sense what's coming that most people only read about in books. Ever get the feeling you've been here before, even though logically you know you haven't? Not in a past life regression kind of way, more like your soul's got mileage on it that your birth certificate can't explain. You're the person who was giving advice at 15 that most people don't figure out until they're 50, and it's not because you read it somewhere. It's like you downloaded wisdom straight from a source nobody else seems to have access to. There's this weird homesickness you carry around, except it's not for a place you can point to on a map. It's for something you can't quite name, like being nostalgic for a home you've never actually seen. While everyone else is chasing the next thing, you're sitting there feeling oddly tired of games you haven't even played yet. It's like showing up to a party and immediately knowing it's going to be exactly like the last 17 parties. So why bother pretending to be surprised? Your friends might call you an old soul, but that doesn't quite capture it. You're more like a radio that picked up a frequency most people don't even know exists. Now here's where it gets really interesting. You've got these hunches that hit you out of nowhere, and they're annoyingly accurate. You meet someone and within 5 minutes you just know they're gonna be trouble, even though they're charming everyone else in the room. You get a feeling about taking a different route home, and later find out there was a massive accident on your usual road. You're about to sign a contract and something whispers, "Wait," and sure enough, you discover a clause that would have buried you. It's not magic and it's not paranoia. It's like your internal system processes information on a level that bypasses the usual logical checkpoints. Think of it like how dogs can hear frequencies humans can't, or how some people can feel a storm coming in their bones before the weather app updates. Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in Blink, how our unconscious mind processes vast amounts of data in milliseconds and delivers conclusions our conscious brain hasn't caught up to yet. You're not psychic, you're just tuned in to signals that most people's internal noise drowns out completely. But let's get specific, because this isn't just theory. There was probably a moment when you almost made a decision that looked perfect on paper, but something in your gut screamed, absolutely not. Maybe it was a job offer with great money but wrong energy, or a relationship that checked all the boxes but felt off in a way you couldn't explain to your friends. You ignored the logical arguments and followed that presentiment. And later, could be weeks, could be months, the truth came out, and you realized your intuition just saved you from a spectacular disaster. Could have been discovering the company was about to collapse, or finding out that person was hiding something massive, or realizing that path would have taken you somewhere completely misaligned with who you actually are. That's your guidance system doing its job, and the more you honor it, the stronger it gets. So here's your move. Before you make your next big decision, doesn't matter if it's about money, relationships, career, whatever, give yourself 5 minutes of complete silence. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just sit with the question and see what bubbles up before your logical mind starts building arguments. Because if you've made it this far reading about signs that most people think are coincidence, chances are you already know there's a bigger picture here. And ignoring these patterns might be the most expensive mistake you never make. So here's the real question. Now that you've seen these 9 signs laid out in front of you, what are you actually gonna do with this information? Because knowing you're different is one thing, but living like you're different requires you to make moves that most people will never understand. Are you gonna keep dimming your light because it makes other people comfortable? Or are you finally ready to stop apologizing for seeing through the nonsense that everyone else accepts as normal? Think about it. If you've got that radar that detects fake from a mile away, why are you still sitting in rooms full of performance art? If rejection has been redirecting you towards something better, why are you still mourning doors that closed instead of sprinting toward the ones swinging open? And if your intuition has saved you more times than you can count, Why are you still second-guessing it and letting logic talk you into situations your gut already flagged as disasters? The knowledge is useless if you don't act on it, and action is what separates people who recognize the signs from people who actually become what they were designed to be. Here's what I want you to do right now. And I mean literally right now, not later when I have time. Look at your life and identify one area where you've been playing small because it was easier than dealing with the pushback. Is it that business idea you keep talking about but never starting? That toxic relationship you're dragging out because being alone feels scarier than being drained? That job that pays the bills but kills your soul a little more each day? Pick one, just one, and make a decision today that your future self will thank you for. Write it down, tell someone who will hold you accountable, or take the first micro step that proves to yourself you're serious this time. Because here's the thing about being chosen. It's not a participation trophy. It's a responsibility, and responsibilities ignored don't just disappear. They turn into regrets that follow you around whispering, "What if?" until you're too old to do anything about it. You've been given tools most people don't have. That ability to spot truth, that strength forged in fire, that intuition that sees around corners. And letting those tools rust because you're scared of standing out is like being handed a Ferrari and choosing to push it instead of drive it. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. What's it gonna take for you to finally believe that the very things that made you feel like the odd one out are actually your greatest advantages? How many more signs do you need? How many more coincidences where your gut was right and everyone else was wrong? How many more closed doors that later revealed themselves as blessings in disguise? The universe has been leaving breadcrumbs, and you've been following them whether you admitted it or not. That's why you're here right now, reading this, feeling that weird mix of recognition and resistance. So here's your final move. If this resonated with you, if you felt seen in a way that most content never manages to do, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. This channel is dedicated to going deeper than the surface-level motivational garbage that insults your intelligence. We're talking about the real patterns, the uncomfortable truths, and the strategies that actually work when you're playing a completely different game than everyone else. Don't let this be just another video you watched and forgot. Let it be the moment you decided to stop shrinking and start becoming exactly what you were built for. The choice, as always, is yours, but something tells me you already know what you're gonna do.